Three, two, one. Hey everyone, you're watching Ash on Comics. My name is Ash, and here is today's comic, Batman and the Outsiders, #1. Been waiting for this for a while. It's supposed to come out in January. This is the sequel, an ongoing series. Presumably it's ongoing. You never know in modern comics. But they've announced it as an ongoing, and this is the sequel, as I was saying, to Detective Comics. I want to say it was 987 through 990, like 1 or 2. Anyways, it's volume 8 of the trade paperbacks from the Rebirth series. And we'll get to it in the comic because it reminds us of which one that is. And it's Bryan Hill's run. He did, I believe it was just 5 issues. Might have been 6, but I'm pretty sure it was 5. Now, I was not a collector of Batman at the time. I was a big fan of Bryan Hill. Not as a writer, however. I was a big fan of Bryan Hill based on his presence on social media. He is on Twitter, and unlike what most comics pros on Twitter, this guy is an exemplary role model of professionalism, okay? And I really took a notice because it was such a stark contrast of just how bad the modern day pros were behaving on social media. Most of the other good pros, there are other good pros out there, but they just like avoid social media. That's their way of dealing with it. But Bryan doesn't run from it. He engages on social media and he's funny. He's got things to add. Things to say, as a writer should. And he handles criticism really well. He is real friendly with his fans. He just behaves in a way, like I said, it's an exemplary way. I could not think of a way better for him to handle himself and conduct himself. And I mean, just the amount of presence that he puts out there, for me, is I'm thankful enough. Like, I don't expect him to give that much of his time back, but he does. And so I'm appreciative, and I'm really appreciative that he handles it well. So that being said, I was so impressed that I remember one day, it was like a year ago, and I remember I just engaged with him, and I said something like, what comic are you doing at the time? And this is before he did his Detective Comics run. And he said, I'm doing this or that. And it was like something that I wasn't really into or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. And then, but I was like, man, I really would like to read something of his. It sounds like a guy, if he's good, he would be someone I'd be proud to be kind of a fan of. So I wanted to really give him a shot. So it was a very short time later, that he announced he was doing a Detective Comics run coming up. And I was like, perfect. I love Batman. And I don't get Detective Comics because since my coming back to comic books, Detective Comics has really just become the Bat Family book. And I'm not a big Bat Family person. But I was like, you know what? I'll make an exception to read. This is something I at least is in my wheelhouse. You give me an excuse to try out Bryan Hill's work and so forth. So I did. And I've done reviews on all the books. You can go check them out in my back catalog of stuff. I think they're pretty good reviews, actually. I'm kind of impressed. Bryan didn't just write good comics. He gave me good material to talk about comics because he did so many things right that I was able to use that as fodder and material to discuss comic books from a critical standpoint. And one of the things I do here isn't, I don't try to just be some like uber critic and all what I say goes. I try to just be a good fan of comics and someone who tries to constantly educate themselves on the medium, learn more about it, what to appreciate, and what makes it, the craft, what makes someone, like the craft, something, I'm at a loss for words here talking about being a writer. I'm definitely not one, right? So what makes a good comic? I'm just stumbling now, so I'm going to move forward. But anyways, so I read issue #1. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. And then the second issue, I was like, wow, it's even better. And there were certain things that he did that I was like, oh man, that was stunning. And you can go back and, like I said, see those reviews. And there were certain pages that he did that I was just like, wow. Now, it was clear that Bryan was still a little bit, new to comics, and he was making a little mistakes here and there, but they're minor, you know, like they were things that you just go, oh, okay, this is something that over time, as he becomes more and more of a vet, these are just going to be, you know, not seen. And I really, when it was all said and done, I was like, I really enjoyed this. For a fill-in story, which you shouldn't expect much on a fill-in story, I was like, I really enjoy this. And then it got announced that he was doing Batman and the Outsiders, and I was like, okay, sign me up. And I got to say, I continue to buy Batman Detective Comics to this day because of Bryan Hill. Because I decided to stay on for Robinson's run. And while it didn't wow me, about halfway through the run, they announced that Tomasi was going to take over, and I really loved Peter Tomasi, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to stick through James Robinson, and he just did a fair enough job. But anyways, so now I'm reading it because of Bryan Hill. So now I'm reading 2 Batman books that I would not have read if it weren't for this guy. And if it weren't for this guy's behavior on social media. It wasn't like he wowed me over because I read his books for years. This is an example of why social media presence is important and why companies need to have social media policies. And look, if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to conform and say, look, I refuse to get on Twitter and not talk shit, you know, about fans and engage in hateful speech and stuff, then just don't, right? I'm not saying Bryan has to be on Twitter and do all this stuff. He chooses to. And I say, well, if you're choosing to, then be professional. And he is. And guess what? DC is selling 2 comic books to me because of this. And I'm not alone. This is really important. So, you came here for Batman the Outsiders. Let's get into it. What do I think? Well, first of all, I'm not a big fan of Bat Family. However, this doesn't really feel like Bat Family to me. I know 2 of the characters kind of are. This actually feels like Batman managing his own special team. It almost feels like X-Men, where Batman is Charles Xavier, and we have, you know, Black Lightning is Scott Summers. And that's what it feels like. So I'm down with that. I'm a huge X-Men fan. And it's not X-Men, okay? You're going to say, well, I can say all these differences. You're right, it's not X-Men. But it has a similar-ish tone. Whereas, like, Detective Comics was like, you know, all these Robin. It's just all these either ex-Batgirls or ex-Robins or just... It was Bat Family. And I'm just not into I'm not going to get into that right now. So, I like this better. I also like that Black Lightning is kind of the head of things, right? Because I don't know much about Black Lightning. He looks like a cool character. He's got a cool sounding name. So I'm down. And I liked, if that first arc that was in Detective Comics, by the way, were these characters. So if you want to see the prelude story to this, that leads up to this, that's it. That's the prequel story that this takes off from. So I want to know more about Black Lightning. So far, I'm iffy on him. There are things I like about him and things I don't. And we'll cover that in the book. Flash number 70. I'll just keep reminding people that here's your jumping on point for the Flash. Even if you don't want to commit, just commit to year 1. Treat it like a miniseries. Joshua Williamson is one of the best writers in the business. Okay? Try this. Now, moving on to the story. We start off... Oh, geez, come on. I turned off notifications. Why do I keep getting that stuff? Starting in Los Angeles a few hours ago. Now, Dexter Soy is doing the art in this book. And I want to freely admit I am not a Dexter Soy fan. However, I know lots of people are. That's great. Art is very subjective. Now, in comic books, it's also very... it's a craft, right? It's not purely subjective. There are objective criticisms and ways you can evaluate the form. So I'm going to try to stick with that. I just want to say about my own personal feelings about Dexter Soy is I have this this opinion about comic book art. And there's like 2 aspects of it. There's the quality of the craft, or just the illustration combined with the storytelling aspects, which are the sequential art and your layouts and all that stuff, and your ability to just actually illustrate accurately. And then there's a sexiness factor. Now, some comic artists are sexy. Some comic artists are just very highly skilled. And the highly skilled ones that aren't sexy can look really boring and bland and it doesn't interest you. And the really sexy ones can look really exciting. Like Rob Liefeld is an artist who's like high on the sexy side but very low on the on the quality illustrations, at least back in the 90s. I'm not going to talk about modern Liefeld. But he was super sexy, which got many people to love his books. Dexter Soy is kind of in that boat for me. I feel like his art is very sexy and eye-catching and appealing, but he's kind of lacking on the fundamentals and the craft. And then you get the super artists that are both, like your Jim Lees of the world, and they can kind of do both, and they become the all-time greats. So, moving on, we've got these two characters, and they're in a car, and boom! They get in a wreck, and we get this guy, who we don't know. And this girl's named Sophia, and her father, and he immediately is just like, down to business, and he's like, Sophia, run! She's like, oh, what? And then he grabs her, and he's like, no, please. Nothing from my touch, strange. So scared. You don't know what you are. Let me show you. And Bryan Hill doesn't waste any time. She's like, no, please. And then there's this truck going in the underpass, and boom, and then explosions. Wasting no time in getting you into the action. And this is good comic book form, okay? Comic books are a short form medium. You got about 20 to 22 pages to hook, to tell your story. And in the first couple pages, you need to hook your reader, especially in the first issue. And Bryan does that. Now, one minor critique here is I don't think a human body off a bridge would hit the truck and impact it and explode. I think she would just bounce right off that. But there might be more things at play that I'm aware of. And it's comic books. So sometimes, just like in TV shows, every time a car crashes, it explodes. That doesn't happen in real life. It's just one of the tropes. So, explosion. Of course, naturally, she's alive. And she's like, she's walking away from the explosion. And so as a reader, you're hooked. Okay, what's going on? Who is this mystery girl? Why is she impervious to fire? Meanwhile, in Gotham City, there's a fight going on. And we see two of the outsiders, make no mistake. Made mistake, no exit. Pinned, says Orphan. I can rush him. I'm not scared, Orphan. Not fear. Must wait for lightning. Plan. And then you hear the inner monologue of Black Lightning. They don't trust you. And why would they? He calls himself St. John. 3 church shootings in 3 days. He calls it his trinity of violence. Bruce calls him training. Call it off, Jeff. Jeff is Black Lightning. You don't owe Batman anything. And then we see the Signal, who I'm not really a fan of. We don't need Black Lightning. I'm taking him now. All you're going to do is get them killed. And you see Black Lightning charging in off the reflection, and he zots the guy. And then Katana's introduced. Each of these people is a nice little way to say these names. It's kind of a cheat, but an acceptable one. So that new readers, if you just came on this book cold, you're like, I don't know, who's the, So now you immediately know they're Katana. The book can reference them, and you're not just like, who are they even talking about? Raijin, finish him. Close your eyes, Katana. This gets bright. And then he's just, wow. I love seeing that unleash. And he zots him, takes care of business. I told you, an orphan, to wait for a signal. We were pinned down. We had to move. No, you needed to wait for backup. We don't wait in Gotham, Lightning. You were about to get shot in Gotham, Signal. And so these two have tension between them. And I kind of see this like a rebellious teenage son with a father figure. You want me to say I'm sorry? Fine. I'm sorry you couldn't keep up. You have a problem with me, son? You're not my father, and you're not Batman. Neither are you, Signal. That's why I had to save your life. We have to work together. We're a team. Now, this is the part that I like. I like the leadership parts of Black Lightning. I don't like the second-guessing parts of Black Lightning. And I guess maybe that's important, and Bryan's got a story to tell about Black Lightning coming to grips with being a leader. So maybe it's pains that are just for the story that I just have to get through. But that's how I'm feeling about it right now. I didn't mean... You're right. I'll wait up next time. We need to call this into GCPD, so the outsiders. They won't follow you. They don't trust you. And why should they? And then this whole thing is Seek Detective Comics Volume 8 on the outside. That's the book. Meanwhile, at Kubrick Towers. Sorry I'm late, Jeff. I had to handle something. Field report. You want the truth, Bruce? Always. Duke's not right. Cassandra thinks this is recess. Katana will kill someone before this is over. Now, this is one thing I want to say about Bryan Hill is his dialogue. Now, I think part of this has to do with Bryan's being a film aficionado, and I think that is what he's trying to do, is write for film. But I know film is not 100% authentic either. There's like a movie way of speak, but it, compared to comics, it is way more authentic. And these characters come off like film dialogue, not chintzy, cheesy, self-impressed, comic, witty, what comics have developed into in the past 10 years. It's just this constant, like, Big Bang Theory type of dialogue. This just feels like you were writing a movie script. It would belong in there. You keep us in the field, one way or another, you're going to get a set of coffins. Expensive view. It's your team. Make them what you want them to be. Is it my team? Wayne, what I want for you is to tell me the truth. You don't need me to lead them. From what I gather, you're a man who doesn't need anyone. So what's this really about? They'll be better off with you, Jeff. And it's just a good man-to-man heart talk. And just Bryan just feels like the voice feels right, natural. And it helps immerse me. I can't say enough. Now, my personal opinions here, I just don't like Dexter Soy's, how he draws Bruce Wayne. I just feel like Bruce Wayne should be a hulking figure, a really imposing person. But, that's just subjective. So, we go further in the story. Batman's doing his thing, trying to solve, this case. The dead father, the girl's on the run. Jefferson, meanwhile, goes to Katana for help in her little secret dojo. And he explains to her that, she doesn't need a leader, and he needs a partner. So he's trying to get her to be his co-leader, essentially, help him become better. And so they have a little sparring thing, and all this dialogue kind of gets through all that. Now, there was a part here that I didn't get, and it's partly maybe because I don't understand this character very well. I know she was on Suicide Squad, and I'm a total normie when it comes to her. But I know the husband, I guess, resides in the Sword. And you hear Tatsu after Jefferson leaves. And she's like, Maseo, speak to me. And she's crying. And then she's saying stuff in Japanese. Tasukete kurusai. I don't know what that means. I could probably Google translate it. But I was kind of lost here. And I feel like this is one of those things, fans who are really into the character, kind of get it. And people like me are like, oh. So if that's true, that's a critique. Meanwhile, Signal's riding his motorcycle. He's on his motorcycle riding with, he's riding bitch. I forgot he does that. Oh, God, I don't like Signal. Anyway, he's got some psychotrauma with Karma, who was in that original storyline of Detective Comics. Cool character. He can't get over it. So, he's basically saying, I'm not afraid, and then boop, boop, the little watches go off, and Batman's calling. Then he explains it was called the ARC program, a consortium of billionaires created their metahumans. So he explains who those people were and why the girl was on fire, because this was a program meant to make metahumans, and it was, of course, a big evil thing. Batman solved it, put him in a safe house, blah, 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 and he thought everyone was safe, but they got found. So now we see she explains why Sophia was able to deal with things. She's got superhuman strength, and the more she endures, the stronger she gets, but she can't die. And so he's briefing them on their mission. Meanwhile, he's like, I got other stuff to do. Go get her. So this is the other part of Jefferson that I don't like. It's a non-trust for Batman. That's actually the biggest thing. I can handle more of the not ready for leadership part. I'm like, why are you taking this job if you don't? It's like Batman's keeping secrets that can get us killed. Maybe he has a good reason. Maybe. But he's throwing us into his shadows. I don't think we're outsiders. I think we're outcasts. We don't have to do this. So you tell me what you want. Your call. She's like, I want to find this Sophia. And he's like, why? Because we can. And I'm challenging you. And that's what he told her before when he wanted a partner. He's like, I need you to challenge me. So she's like, oh, and that's kind of cool. I like that. I don't trust Batman, but that doesn't matter. Well, dude, you shouldn't, if you're a leader, you should not be saying that to your subordinates, right? Because all of you are under Batman. You shouldn't be throwing your leader under the bus. Like, that's not good. So I don't like that about you. Hopefully that's something you evolve and change from. So meanwhile, girl's trying to get away at the train station. Kind of a stereotypical trope here, but no worries. She's talking about how she's supposed to stay in public, but she walks by the restroom that's out of order and gets snatched. Meanwhile, the guy explains, listen to me, blah, 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 putting a gun in your face. And he explains that your father was killed by a man named Ishmael. He's a naughty boy, but he's just the muscle. Ishmael is following the orders of a man, maybe more than a man. Ra's al Ghul. Ra's who? Ra's al Ghul. It's the name of the most dangerous man you will ever know, and this man will never stop until you serve him. If you run, you'll die. If you try to hide, you'll die. Call me Caliber. I came here to keep you alive. Came here from where? From the future, where you will pull humanity from the ashes. You can't be scared, little girl, anymore, Sophia. You have to fight. Civilization will burn. No one can stop that now. In my future, the world ends with you. And through you, this new age is born. Next, call me Ishmael. Oh, you're Kyle Reese from the future. Come with me if you want to live. Sorry, Bryan, you deserve that. But that's it. It's a simple story. It's a simple setup story. Mind the tropes we've kind of seen before. I don't know. Who cares? I'm intrigued. I like new characters. I like storylines like this. Oh, it's from the future. That's always intriguing. Bryan's pulling some of his sci-fi fandom into it. I'm all on board. This is a fun comic story. It's very much evokes what he did in Detective Comics. If you are interested in Batman and the Outsiders, or if you read this and you like it, go back and get that trade or get the original issues from Detective Comics, because like I said, that story is the prelude to this. It's the buildup of what makes all this happen and why Batman goes to get Black Lightning. It's essentially the origin story of the Outsiders. So I hope that you got some value out of this review. It's not the world's greatest book I've read. I mean, I think, to be fair, I think Detective Comics is slightly better, but this is only one issue, and you got to get the ball rolling. It's not really fair to judge a comic on a first issue, and this is a very strong first issue. It hooked me. It made me want to know more and follow this story. And like I said, it's just a joy to read Bryan's prose. His monologues, his dialogues. He just has a voice that I feel like he just really puts effort into thinking how these characters should sound and what they should say. And that makes reading the book just so much more enjoyable. It is to the words what the art is to the eyes, right? Like when you have a really good artist, you just love looking at it. Reading Bryan's, even if the story is just a mediocre story, it's so enjoyable to read because the character just feels, I don't know, it feels so right. So thanks for watching. Like I said, I hope you got something out of it. Put your comments below. Like, subscribe, make sure you're still subscribed, etc., blah, blah, blah. And I will see you on the flip side. Thumbs up. Move the needle. Time for another JL8 webcomic, number 25 by Yale Stewart. Here's your purse back, ma'am. Oh my goodness, thank you. Such brave young men, stopping that thief, and handsome too. Just doing the right thing, ma'am. Well, if I were any younger, I'd bend down and give each of you a smooch. I may be able to help you with that. Clark, what are you? Clark, Clark, Clark.